And can people... Good to go? Heard that? Yes!
Sweet.
Yes.
I am Salim Lopez.
Yep.
Oh, thank you everybody for your amazing patience. So first tech issue of 2021. Not bad. I made it to March. We just don't get the pretty overlay because I am not messing with anything right now. Nope, not messing with anything. All right. So yes, I am joined by our lead environment artist, our lead designer and senior game designer, Salim. And I do want to make a quick mention about Salim's title because I've gotten questions as to what is Salim's actual title? Like, what is he like? Does he systems? Does he content? Because in the past we've always divided people into those categories for design. Salim is a very unique category. He does chunks of everything. And when he starts talking about the dungeon, I'll let him kind of go over more what his role is in the design. But that's why he gets the very special senior game designer title. So no one else has it on the team. Sorry.
That's why some people on the team is qualifying for that, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm only going to give it to you right now. If they show up on stream, they can get a special title. All right, well, thanks again. Let's kick off the stream. I have some questions, but feel free to, community, just send me questions in chat. I do have some questions already prepped that I got ahead of time from folks, as well as just things that come from my brain. So hopefully, just bear with me. And I do have some pretty images, too. You guys got kind of teaser of. But I want to start with a little bit of background, just because Charandar is special in that while it's new content, it is going back to older content, like I think Fury of the Feywild was Module 1. So I was curious on my end, who of my guests here actually, did any of you work on Module 1? Did any of you work on Fury of the Feywild?
No.
No?
Maybe Randy.
Yeah, I was going to say, Randy.
Yes,
Randy
I
did for
actually
sure.
did.
Yes.
Yes, I worked on it. I was the content lead at the time, and yeah, that was our first module we designed for the studio, for Neverwinter back in the day, and it was the first time we really wanted to try out how these module releases would work with campaigns. It was the first campaign structure. Obviously, it's evolved a lot. Campaign structures have evolved a lot over the years. So yeah, that was our kind of first foray into it, and we did a lot of tweaking over the years. We were actually worked with our studio up in Seattle on that one, so it was a mix of our local artists and our Cryptic North artists and designers. So yeah, it was an interesting collaboration because this was we were doing a lot of remote work before it was cool. So.
Wow, so it's that's Cryptic North. That's been a while because that studio no longer exists. But wow, that has been it was before my time. Well, I guess not because I was a player back in that time. Yes, Julia, testing out overlay. You saw my sneaky move things around. Well, cool. Yeah, I kind of figured you would be the one person who would remember. I guess so. David and Salim, when did you enter Neverwinter? I'm just trying to provide a bit of context to the community as to like the different areas of history with the game. So I don't know, David, do you want to? I know you joined our team recently, but I don't know if you were on the team before or anything like that.
No, I was over on Star Trek Online as an environment artist, and then moved over to Neverwinter last March. So my year is coming up here soon. I joined the team whenever we started working from home. So it was a lot of transitions within a short time. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen you in person, like on our team. So I mean, I've seen you in person before. But...
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Salim, you joined, I think, a little after I started, but you had been there before I was there too. So do you want to talk a little bit about your background with Neverwinter?
Yeah, I was on Neverwinter just before the release of Strongholds, during the release of the Paladin. What module was that? For Elemental Evil, yeah. So I worked on Elemental Evil. I joined Neverwinter back then. I forget what year that was. I was here for 8 months. Then
We don't talk about
returning
elemental
back
evil,
to-
by the way.
I ended up having, returning back to my home. I was living away from my kids and wife. Got my old job back in San Diego. But then, I always had a place in my heart for Neverwinter, or just for Cryptic in general. It's a great studio. They treat people well. So when I had an opportunity to come back, I jumped on it, and I've been here 4 years. July 17th of this year, it'll be 4 years back. So yeah, I joined, I think, M13B is when I joined. I've been here ever since.
Cool. Well, let's focus now more on Charandar, on the new Charandar. And my first question for all of you. Okay, Julie, I can smell a PvP chicken for April from here. It's a foul smell. So there's a lot of cool new critters in Charandar. I had a whole list of them, but like the top ones are the Splicer Beast. I like the Froghemoth because, come on, it's a god, or at least the Bullywug. But there's a lot of other ones. So I was wondering if any of you had like a favorite critter that we've introduced in Charandar. Whoever wants to.
Splicer Beast. The Splicer Beast, I think, is the king. It's so unique, for our game, and just how it looks. It phases in and out, just the tentacles, and it's super iconic as a D&D creature. And I think we've wanted it for a long time, and it was always like, oh, we just can't do it. And then this time around, it's just like, we got to do it. So it was nice to actually pull the trigger on that. Like the Oni are super cool too. But I think this Splicer Beast is just the king. I think it's one of my favorite creatures that we have in general.
Cool.
He's stealing all the good ones. But I do like the hags as well. The big bads of the setting. They are ancient, powerful fey beings, and they when they get together, it's a party and a lot of trouble for the players. And so having ones that have lived a long time in the Feywild and have gathered strength and power enough to challenge the gathered strength of the Ilian Bruin in New and Charandar is pretty exciting. Like, because they have a pretty vast array of powers and everything. So they're cool antagonists. And I think we're having a lot of fun working with them.
To go with the lesser known, it's not even. Well, no, I guess you wouldn't say lesser known, but it's not on the list.
Oh.
But they are in Charandar. It's the Grung.
Oh, okay. See, yeah,
they're not new though.
Yeah, they're not new.
They're not new. They're not new, but they're my favorite.
Yeah.
They're my favorite. They remind me of the Ninja Turtles a little bit. It's the Frog Ninja Turtles.
What is it with frog-like creatures
the
having
Battletoads.
interesting deities?
Battletoads too, yeah.
Yeah.
I just like the idea of them, having their own little camp, and something about little monsters or little creatures that may be kind of like really big trouble in bigger packs.
Mm-hmm.
That really intrigues me.
Cool. So for chat, I know you gave me a lot of questions, but I'm trying to keep it relevant to Charandar. And if you ask very specific systems questions, I'm not going to answer those just because this is not a systems focused stream. So just going to keep it relevant to actual Charandar, but I'm not ignoring. I'm keeping an eye on them and making note for later. Someone did mention that Randy, you'll be interested in this one. Canadian guilds want a moose, so
I too am interested. I too am interested in this. I will put in the request on the art side, and we'll see what we can do.
All right.
We have been talking about getting a Minotaur, so maybe we can have a Moosatar.
A Moosatar.
We can get a moose and a Minotaur, put them together, and we get 3 creatures, right?
Yeah. So, which parts of which would you use, though?
Well, the moose head goes on where the bull head is on a Minotaur. We get a normal Minotaur, and then we just get a normal moose. We get 3 creatures in one.
Okay.
Nice.
Let's do it. So this is the way you have to sell things to the art team to get
Dave's thinking about it, and then we can have it like
I
carrying
am.
a grung. We can have it carrying a grung as like a little pet that it like throws at people and it bounces off and stuff.
On his shoulder.
Yeah, it's on its shoulder. Yep.
And that is when Neverwinter
See?
jumped the shark.
Done.
All right, so Randy, I'm going to start off with some specific questions for you, and then I'm going to bounce around from person to person. But my first question is, are we done with hell?
We are done with hell for the time being. The influence is of the lower planes is still present. Like there are of course devils and demons that are trying to work their way into the other planes, into the Sword Coast. But for now, the adventures into Avernus are behind us. We spent a long time there, and we're moving on to brighter pastures, so to speak.
Greener ones.
Greener ones, yeah.
Yeah. I got a question from chat from Harper Steele, which is kind of, I kind of had a similar question on the doc, so it works. And this is kind of for everybody, which is what were some things, like companions, events, etc., the team was inspired to incorporate in the Charandar rework? So, whoever wants to start answering, like what are the things that, when you were putting together Charandar, you were inspired to incorporate?
I think a big part of it is just there's been a lot of development of the Feywild and and the Forgotten Realms. I just call it the Plane of Fairy, and there's a lot of back history in the all the books that have written about the realms over the years, and they've kept on developing it. So we kind of went back to the D&D sources first, and seeing what we can kind of pull for that for inspiration. Like Forgotten Realms has a really rich history, and so that was our first source for researching a lot of that stuff.
And then Salim, like you are the mastermind behind Vault of Stars. So where did that come to throw it into Charandar?
So I mean, the one thing, the Charandar is all happy and green and cool, but obviously the pantheon stuff related to the Feywild is significant, and it has its dark side. And the Queen of Barren Darkness, as soon as I saw her and read the story, and just the relationship between her and Titania, and the Prince of Frost and all this, I was like, man, this place is like right up my alley. Like it's dark, it's gloomy. That's not like an evaluation of my life or my mood, but it just has this like cool like opportunity for atmosphere, and just kind of a moody feel, and from there just came a bunch of gameplay ideas inspired by a lot of old games like Crystal Chronicles, things like that, which for those who have played the dungeon, they can probably recognize those. So yeah, it was just a fun like contrast for the story we were telling. And then when I got with the main content designer for it, Noah Holmes, we started talking about how we could connect the dungeon and the Night Diamond into the main story, and it just kind of worked itself well into trying to find ways to stop the hags because they were just kind of ever-present power. And then it just turned into this like cool, just total background story that I don't want to necessarily ruin for people who haven't experienced it, where we were able to just connect all these things together in a way that I think feels really cool, and it certainly drove my passion for dungeon development and kind of some of the background storytelling that's in there. So yeah, this was a really fun experience.
Cool. We have another question from the community, which is, will there be a skirmish included with the new Charandar? Randy, do you know?
We've got the older Master of the Hunt that is still active. There's been discussions about including a updated version that would kind of match it. That's still on the back burner right now. So if you see it, it probably wouldn't be until later this year.
Okay. Let's move a question for David, which kind of ties into what you're talking about. But Old Charandar was a player favorite. A lot of people love that zone. Just going to it, it's a visually stunning zone. I know that it was always a really nice break for me, it was lovely. But that zone went away to be replaced by the new one. So what parts did you decide to kind of incorporate into the new, like from old Charandar into new Charandar, if any? Like, was there, when you were approaching like the look of new Charandar, were there certain elements that you definitely wanted to keep because you felt they were important for the whole like Charandar mythos setting location?
Yeah, so when we went into Charandar, of course, we did our research and looked at the older maps and the older content, and where we wanted to head. And one thing became apparent is that we needed a lot of overgrowth, a lot of feeling that the environment was always growing or felt very wild and lush. So that's part kind of where we went with it. As far as the older content, keeping a lot of it. Some of the maps have the same footprint, if you think about it, right? Though the way that you tackle it, or the point A to point B. But for the hub, we wanted to do something a little bit different that was more modernized and more quality of life changes that we have in other hubs in our game. So those are some of the reasons why we changed those areas. But as far as the visuals, we really wanted everything to feel lush, beautiful, green. Very, very Fey-like in the more modern sense when you compare them against like maybe film or other games.
Cool. Let's see. Any other questions? There were some questions about the state. I missed it. I think it was Annie who asked it. But it was about the fix for Vault of Stars. For those of you who might have missed that, when we launched Vault of Stars yesterday, we did launch it without the private queues because we were looking at an issue with looting currency items from bosses, and we thought it was related to private queues, but we realized it wasn't. So private queues are now open, but groups, any group that does Vault of Stars, please make sure to loot these 2 items, currency items from the first boss, which is the Gardener, the Royal Gardener. You have to loot those, otherwise you will not get currency items from any of the other bosses in the dungeon. As for the state of that fix, I don't know. I haven't checked with production and QA on where we are with the fix. But
it's I can update. It is currently in the hands of software to investigate. We spent a little bit of time yesterday, or a lot of time yesterday, trying to repro it from a dev side and talking to QA. Eventually, I just had to give it to software. So software should have it now with updated information, now that we know it's not related to private keys. So hopefully we can figure what it is and get it out to you guys immediately. But yes, like loot, we assume that people won't just leave currency loot on the ground. But yes, make sure that you loot the first boss completely.
We do have a comment from Floyd High Hopes, which is, please improve lighting for appearances. Back that is always in shadow. Character selection view superior. So this is where it gets interesting, because if you were like me before I joined the game industry and someone said artist, I just assumed that every artist did everything. But lighting is an interesting one, because lighting affects all areas of the game. So I guess another question for David, like, what are sometimes are there tricks you can do? Like, if there are technical limitations from the engine or from how we have lighting set up in the game, are there certain tricks you can do to make an environment look a certain way, like more lit, more shadowy? If you want to give an example.
Sure. Most of the time, we're always trying to capture a mood, right? If we walk into a hag's lair, we'd like it to feel, creepy or dangerous in some way. So we're always looking to ways to lighten the area that represents a mood. There's also the game part of it where we want to lead the player down a certain path using light, and it's more of game development speak and talk. But there are some things we could do. Comparatively to like Star Trek Online, where we'd upgraded our lighting system on that platform. There are some limitations that we have on Neverwinter right now, but we are pushing it. And who knows? Maybe we will have better lighting at some point. But we're doing the best that we can with the lighting we have right now. I think we're doing pretty good. I think we're really pushing it as a team, almost to the point where we break some things sometimes, but then we draw it back, right? Yeah, we're always looking to push it.
Cool. Yeah, I think like Barovia was a good test in how we worked with shadows, and I think Charandar so far is a good test of how we work with light. So,
can I follow?
Yeah. Sure, go ahead.
Just follow up to that.
Yeah.
I just want to say I want to agree with him. Like they are trying to kick butt with lighting, but I just want to say our environment team rocks in that regard. Like they're definitely pushing things, and they're showing stuff like all the time. We're just like, oh wow, whose game is that? So yeah, they're definitely like pushing things to the edge. So just shout out to them because they are truly awesome.
Last one.
So Floyd, high hopes. Not to ignore your question. The reason I went into environment is because for anything related to character, like on the character selection and all the other character screens, that I'll talk to the character artists and see if they have any comments on that. You know, there was a mention of hags and other stuff in the story. So Randy, I have a question for you. Which is, you know, one of the community, some of the community feedback we got at the release was that, you know, the storyline, you know, it feels like, okay, players start the storyline, but then, you know, there's less of what they would expect. And so they're wondering, like, where is the story going? How are we have set up? And on our end, we know the full story. I mean, we've set up, you know, we've kind of outlined the 3 episodes. There's development on episode 2 and episode 3. So how, you know, as a lead designer, how did you approach balancing content of what you can show in the first episode without giving too much away, but also giving players a sense that there's more coming, there's more to the story?
This actually goes into a lot of the kind of way we're trying to treat the whole evolving world and episodic structure, right? If you, as you kind of play through the storyline, you're going to be unlocking more and more of the revealing more of the story. So what you would normally see in a one of our older modules, we've kind of split that up into multiple chunks that are released over the roughly the same time period you'd experience it. So essentially, what we want to do is what we've been trying to do is do cliffhangers at the end of storylines, and also doing sequential unlocks within the episode. So you know, week by week, it kind of reveals more, and over time, and like when we release episode 2, episode 3, you're gonna see more of the story unfold as we release new environments and advance the storyline, and just kind of see an evolution of the world. Like we're trying to like lead a little bit more into that evolving world. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we kind of evolved Charandar itself is to get a sense of advancement in the world. You know, taking some of the older stuff, updating it with newer visuals and gameplay, and just kind of advancing what has happened. And you could tell that from a lot of if you play the old Charandar or Fury of the Feywild module. And we incorporate a lot of the characters, and they talk about things that have happened in the past, and how this new threat is coming for them after they've spent time rebuilding Charandar and making it a new place, a new home for their people. So so I think that, I don't know if that answers the question exactly, but so expect more in episode 2 and episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got a lot more coming, and including like a evolution of the story and a really cool conclusion we're building towards. One of the things that this kind of episodic structure does is allows us to spend some extra time on each of the episodes, instead of like trying to get everything in it all at once. So I think it's kind of a switch in the way we do content, but it allows the team to really kind of work and develop the storylines and environments over time.
I think it's also from a community perspective, and community, feel free to correct me, that it's also a different approach on how they play, because they're used to basically having everything at once, like the whole story,
right.
Beginning, middle, conclusion. This time I can understand why it's a little bit almost unsettling, like it throws them off balance because they don't know what's happening. I do want to give a call out to Huston1 on the stream chat, also for posting all the great graphic bugs on the forums, but he said, or they said, sorry, I think the Hag's Lair would have been a good opportunity for some lore or something we could inspect for lore or a story clue. So I'm going to go back to Randy real quick and ask, Randy, can you kind of tell us a little bit about the development of episode 2 and 3, and maybe hints about
it?
Yeah, maybe not 3
yeah.
yet, but 2 maybe at least.
Yeah. We've actually dropped some hints in some of the earlier trailers that we've done about some of the stuff. We snuck in a few shots from episode 2 and some of the visuals of what's going there, right? And it's going to be like, as we kind of revealed, and, a little bit of spoilers for people who haven't played through the first part of episode 1. But we that there is the Annis Hag and Granny Neck Snapper. Well, there is her sisters that are going to be part of upcoming stuff. So we did a little bit of a reveal of one of the layers in an earlier trailer that we posted on one of the media sites. So you can probably hunt that down and see what it is, because if you haven't seen it yet, it's probably because it's in episode 2. So it's a little bit of the teaser of what's to come. It's I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to spoil the story too much, but you're going to be building towards a lot of what these powerful Archfey are doing and their plans for Charandar. So
Cool. So I do want to give out a shout out to Chris, who is in the chat. Thank you, Chris, for chatting with folks. I will try to convince Chris to be on a stream with me in the future. But he has other tasks that team directors have, executive producers apparently have work to do. So, but hi, Chris. So talking about like content and happening to the future, I want to go back to Salim real quick because Vault of Stars just released yesterday, and you mentioned a little bit more like where you got the ideas for creating Vault of Stars, but one of the things I was curious about when you're working on a dungeon, which is part of the greater content of the episode, but it's kind of on its own too. It's a little separate thing. So how much do you collaborate with like the full design team versus kind of just on your own, just getting the dungeon out, focusing just on the dungeon and then seeing how you can incorporate it into the larger story? Like, I guess what comes first?
Ultimately, we're all creatives, so collaboration is fun, especially when you've got a team like ours. So, the way it started out, we just had a little kickoff meeting. People read source material. They looked at the story we were telling in Charandar. We got the main content folks for the zone together. It's got in a room. Threw Randy in the mix, and just started talking about some stuff. And generally, we just have kickoff, and people just propose ideas and different concepts. And I proposed the Vault of Stars and just gave some general ideas and some of the original design stuff. And if I remember correctly, like after I was done, people were just like, "Yep, let's go with that." So people seemingly liked the concept when it was presented, which obviously made me happy. This is the first dungeon I've done in Neverwinter. So I probably put a little too much pressure on myself. But yeah, so we just...
You never do that. You never put pressure on yourself at all.
And so throughout the whole process, the dungeon team was attached to the hip. We were constantly talking all the time, just supporting each other. So yeah, like we were definitely attached to the hip as a dungeon team. And of course, people external to that, they knew what was going on. So it's really collaborative. As any creative environment, I would expect it to be pretty collaborative and open. So yeah, even with the pandemic and stuff like that, like we get on Teams. It's super easy to talk to people. So I think things worked out pretty well.
Cool. So kind of a similar question for David. In regards to collaborating, but the question is, environment is everywhere. You wouldn't have a game if you didn't have environment. But you also have to work with different designers. You're designing hubs, you're designing adventure zones, and then you're also you're helping work with like creating the world of a dungeon. So how does the environment team kind of work with the different designers to give a cohesive look to everything, but also make it feel unique? So the Vault of Stars is a dungeon, so you want it to feel part of Charandar, but you also want it to feel like a dungeon. So kind of, can you talk a little about the collaboration and the process of that?
Sure. It all starts with, that kickoff meeting, where we just get the information of what we're going to be doing. But the real development starts happening when we actually get with any of our environment artists, get with one of the designers to figure out what is going to be the use type for any of these spaces. We can just make everything pretty, but we also want things to be functional, right? We want our environment to interact with players, or at least have some kind of functionality or meaning to the gameplay. If we take a few examples from the Vault of Stars, there's many times where the environment actually and the layout of the environment interacts with the players, such as the maze or different arenas that house the different bosses. But that's it's collaboration between art and design throughout the entire process to not only make the environments look very beautiful but also function, which is super important to our team right now and moving forward.
Thank you, and also thank you for Randy for answering stuff in chat as well. So I'm seeing also more questions about like roadmap or plans for the future. So I want to take a moment to answer the chat for that. I think Chris mentioned that we are working on an updated roadmap. It's something that for the last couple of weeks I've also been asking the production team about, because I would like to do a roadmap stream in the near future. But we do have to still work on the roadmap and hope that there's not another wrench thrown in our way like last year, where we presented this amazing roadmap in January and then come March, just kind of got thrown out the window. But that is a plan. So, great questions, but hopefully we'll be able to address those in the future. And let's see, other questions. Actually, let's go back to Salim real quick for Dungeon, because one of the things about the Dungeon is that we did have an early access group. We've been trying to do an early access group for each module with a kind of a narrowed focus, whether it be on a trial or a dungeon or other content. And in this case, the early access group was focused on the Vault of Stars. So Salim, what did you find useful about the early access program? Did you get good feedback to make adjustments? Kind of talk a little bit more about that.
I found it super useful. I've been in this situation before at their studios, and they're always useful. It really is up to the designer to harvest information and make sure that they are getting the information from all the places that are available. In this case, I will say that the feedback was significantly helpful in regards to just straight iteration. The dungeon has 3 sections that are different gameplay experiences, and like I said, I put a little bit of pressure on myself being the first dungeon, and was really ambitious because for me it's the first dungeon. I also want to challenge myself to see if I can introduce some different gameplay in general to our game, and so certainly from a dungeon experience. So when we got to the 3rd section of Vault of Stars, its original design had this wall of darkness encroaching upon you, and it was this visually, it's this great thing. You just see the maze disappearing, just literally disappearing as this thing overtakes you. And if you're watching it, you can kind of feel this cold creep on your skin, just thinking about this thing overtaking you. Unfortunately, in concept that feels great, oh man, it's gonna be crazy, it's gonna be really cool. But then once you get to the reality of things and the result, and people are playing it, there are just things that you just overlooked or didn't realize, and what the feedback made me realize is that the moment to moment of trying to escape from this wall that's encroaching on you was actually taking away from the player's inherent desire to explore a maze. We're putting you in a maze, and we actually want you to get lost and explore, and there's a certain thing in the maze that you can find eventually that I was basically preventing you from being able to get, because I was kind of focused. It was just kind of a mixed bag of things, and so that feedback helped me refocus, and I just made quick iteration, and the experience changed. And I went from this moment to moment stress about the darkness to reinforcing the concept of encroaching darkness, and just a timer. And then your screen gets progressively darker and darker as you get closer. You can still function. You can still run through it. You can go and explore. The maze actually separates you now, and people have to get back together. So as overall gameplay experience, it definitely was much better. And once that went out to the group, like, people were super impressed with it. They really liked it. And internally, there were people who weren't like super excited about the execution of the third area because they were worried about things. And once I just had the kind of epiphany on what I could do and pull that out, like, internally everyone's like, oh yeah, this is great. So like, that's directly from the feedback. At some point, maybe I would have made that leap. I don't think I would have made this type of leap if it wasn't for that feedback and getting kind of really personal experience with the other design, because they were very specific in the things that were missing, and it just, a light bulb went off, like, oh man, this is where I totally messed up here. Let's just make this change. So for me, it was like super helpful, and it was also true of the second area. The second area changed a bunch, just in execution and player experience, because conceptually I was thinking one way, and it's true of all designs. Once it gets in players' hands, or your customers' hands, the experience is going to be different than what you expect. But as long as you can nail the result, then you win.
Cool. And David, how does the environment team feel when you create this awesome look to something, and then all of a sudden the experience the players get is it gets encroached in darkness, so it just becomes dark. So I'm just wondering, how does it was kind of almost a tongue-in-cheek question, but there is a reality, like when you are designing an area that is going to become obscured, does that change how you set up the area?
Yes. I mean, I don't know how many artists are going to say this, but gameplay is king. Shh, don't tell anybody. But yeah, if there's any kind of issues like that, we always aim to adjust it, so that way we can still get the mood that we want, but also players can play freely and experience it as we intended. So yeah, we're always making adjustments based on feedback. We're always looking. I'm on Reddit, lurking around.
We have a lot of Reddit lurkers on our team.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we always make adjustments where we can.
Cool.
Yeah, and David is correct about gameplay being king.
Yeah. I think community is king, or queen.
It's true. We love our players.
Yes. Let's see. We do have questions about graphics on console, and I do know that there are still some visual looks that those issues end up going to our software core team. Ultimately, they're the ones who own the engine. So I'll circle back with them to see if we have an update. Unless, Randy, do you know where we are, in terms of the issues with graphics on console?
We're still working through them. There's some technical issues that we just have to just kind of get through our core engineering group. But we're working on it, and we'll try to smooth it out.
Cool. Let's see some more questions from the community. Hi Nova. I haven't seen a question from you yet. Noah asks, are there any methods, features, practices from the Redeem Citadel that wasn't implemented that might be implemented with Charandar? Silence? Well, we don't have the person who did Redeem Citadel. That was Doug. But I guess,
yeah.
I guess we can. Salim is our event master. So how much do you coordinate with Doug, since he also does some other events, in terms of hey, this worked really well for this event, or this didn't work so well, but we could make it work in a future event?
We coordinate a good bit. We're also pretty good friends. So we talk a bunch. As far as Redeem Citadel specifically, I wasn't involved in that directly, but some aspects of it, we ended up collaborating on as it relates to things like the war stuff. Sorry, the war stuff so I'm talking wrong. But as far as what was the original question? Sorry. I'm actually being talked to about the bug in the dungeon right now, so I was actually distracted for a second. What was the actual question again? Sorry, it sounded long.
It's
Forgive me.
no, it's basically. Was there anything we learned from Redeemed Citadel that didn't get used during Redeemed Citadel that might be implemented in Charandar?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a Doug question.
Yeah.
He did do like a full post-mortem on it and presented it, and there were definitely some things that we learned from it that we need to evaluate and use in the future if we do that type of thing again.
Yeah, it's the Redeemed Citadel development it's an experiment, and where we wanted to try a new type of gameplay. One of the things about the way we would do the Redeemed Citadel, it incorporates a lot of community involvement, which we really liked, and I think the community liked. I think there are some things we would tweak if we did a thing like this again. We'd like to do something like that again. We want to evolve it. We don't want to do the exact same thing again. But we want to take a lot of lessons from it, and like Salim was saying, Doug did a really good summary of how everything was put together. So we've got a framework to work from, and we want to get. We already got a lot of good community feedback on what they liked and what we need to improve on. So we'll if we incorporate something like that again, we're going to evolve it in ways that are appropriate for the content we're doing it for and the feedback we have.
And speaking of kind of evolving content, Galactic has a question, which is more focused on episodic content. So what lessons, he asks, what lessons have you learned from the first attempt? And is there something you think you can do better? Now, one thing I do want to clarify is that, when I was thinking about episodic content, Rage of Bell was technically our first approach to episodic content in a way, but I don't know if I'd call it an episode per se. I think Charandar, the Iron Tooth, I think fits more the definition of an episode. But Randy, I don't know if you want to talk more about how we are approaching episodic content and what things we kind of learned as we dabbled a little bit last year and how we're implementing it this year.
Sure. When we first started doing things like Rage of Bell and Redeemed Citadel, those were kind of like far as in terms of how we can evolve the world and add additional content to existing stuff to say, hey, this is the way the storyline evolved, or storyline has changed and the world has evolved accordingly. Salim did a lot of the Rage of Bell stuff, and that incorporated an interesting element of the whole Avernus storyline with Zariel, in terms of Bell, coming back, who was the former ruler of Avernus, and coming in and basically staking his claim in the whole battlefield and storyline, so that's it brings in a lot of the background story into the forefront and does a good evolution of the world and story. So Rage of Bell was first. We did more with Redeemed Citadel, but Charandar is kind of one of the first of the kind of true episodic structures, right? And this is where we take a module and we kind of break it into multiple releases during roughly the same time period. So what you would experience, so there's going to be for each episode, there's going to be its own little mini campaign associated with it. All right, so in a sense, you are experiencing the same thing as a module. We just split it up over time to give more of the cliffhanger aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So we have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to ask each of you a question, and it's different questions, but we'll start with David. And what is your favorite area in New Charandar and why?
Release content?
Yes, from release content.
I'd have to say the hub.
I want other players to be able to see it too.
I'd have to say the hub thus far. I think it's a nice introduction to where we're going as far as Charandar, the newer Charandar. But there's more. There's more to come that are my favorites in each episode, honestly.
Someone in chat says, what's the point of a Q&A if half the questions are from Julia? So, secret, I all the questions that people asked are also ones I had on my sheet. So they're actually shared questions. I think I've gotten pretty good about kind of guessing what questions are going to come from the community. Though I was purposely avoiding anything that was not related to Charandar or systems, just because I did not want to distract from the focus of the stream. But for a future stream, what I can do is I can open up for questions on a forum thread earlier if people actually want to write them down. So definitely something to keep in mind for the future.
They're asking about dragons.
Dragons? We don't have dragons.
Oh, yeah, dragons. Hey, I might have a little say in that, but yeah.
You feel free if you want to talk about dragons.
Dragons. I can't really say because Randy will slap me, but they will be. Well, I'll just say dragons.
Yeah. Go to the hub and look around in the sky.
Well, I guess we brought Salim brings the dungeons. I guess he can also bring the dragons.
Shadowing.
Listen for the sound of wings overhead.
Yep.
I mean, all kidding aside, yeah, we're definitely looking to have some fun with them in the future. That's not really revealing much, but yeah, some stuff that I'm really excited about doing. So yeah.
Cool.
Get ready, guys.
I know I'm excited too. But so, quick question for Salim: what is your favorite boss in Vault of Stars, and why?
So I have to say, knowing the work that went into all three of the bosses, I really, really love Prince of Frost. Not only just from a fight, his fight is straightforward and yet fun. I think he, difficulty-wise, he fits perfectly as far as our progressive difficulty of bosses where he is. But really, just you have this dungeon that's starts out happy and cool because you're outside of the Gloaming Court. Then you go into Gloaming Court and things are dark and scary and gloomy. And then you this guy here, he's ice. What is he? There's just this kind of question you ask: what is this guy doing here in the middle of a forest that's dark and gloomy? And then the visuals that his fight adds to the environment. You've got this, these good edges and stuff on all this architecture and it's dark. And then he's got these jagged, sharp edges that he's doing with the ice blocks and all this crazy stuff. And he's challenging you with his sword like Strahd. And then once you find out his backstory and how he's linked to the Queen of Air and Darkness and Titania, and just he's this tragic, evil dude, but he's evil for this reason, and he's sadistic, and so once you find out the story behind him, I read the story, I'm this guy's got to go in because he's just cool. So I dig him from all levels. I think the fight is great. Robert did a fantastic job on it. And just his story, and people who are interested in the lore of him or already know about him, I think that seeing him and they make the connection of why he would be there, I think that's just kind of a cool Easter egg for those who are interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
For those who just like a good fight, they also get that. So I think he kind of nails it on all the fronts as far as the gameplay experience goes. So almost a full package, I would say.
Cool. So just one last question for Randy, and then I know a lot of good questions to start to come in, but I do want to respect the dev schedules. But Randy, the big important question for you is, can we get the promissory note on the roadmap?
That comes up in design discussions about what is our long-term plan for the promissory note, and yes, we will continue to discuss that.
Do you promise, Randy? I will get a promissory note from Randy on this one.
Exactly. This is going to be Arcane's promissory note.
All right, I am gonna. It's lunchtime, so I can already hear the devs' stomachs rumbling. So, thank everybody for joining in. Apologies for the initial tech issues. Thank you for sticking through with this. A lot of great questions. I currently have a stream plan for the next few months. I'm going to see where I can insert more streams. But just really excited to what's happening. Annie did mention earlier that yes, Dragon Plus currently has a giveaway. So the Dragon Plus magazine, you have to download the app on your mobile device, and there's an offer section. You can download a pack. It's a limited number though, so kind of go in. It's for PC only right now, but Yes, Dragon Plus currently has an offer, so go claim it. The pack of the Sylph, I believe it is. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much, David, Salim, Randy. I love having new people, so I hope I can get you folks back. I didn't scare you too much with the tech issues.
Anytime.
It's been great. Thank you everybody, and bye.
Bye. Hope to